Yeah, week 6 is almost done. It's Friday, and I'm so happy to see that it's cooler and that it rained a little bit. I want it to rain more. We all want it to rain more. If rain dancing works, let's all do it. All right, so I have seen about half of you at this point, and it has just confirmed what I've believed for uh, since I've been doing code reviews and dev projects is the importance of these processes. And and there's been more than a couple of you who got really nervous, and that's really normal during this process. Okay, but I think hopefully by the end, you were able to calm down. It seemed like it was true for me, for those who had a bit of heart palpitations doing this, because it is hard. I mean, there is just no doubt that it is hard to have somebody look at your work and ask you about it and try to figure out, you know, what you were thinking and did you meet the requirements and all those things. So, but I can tell you, in this industry, it will not be the last time somebody does this type of thing with you. And mine was gentle, honestly. So I really do it for various reasons. One is that it's the best way for me to know how well the concepts are translating to the students. It lets me see how well you're not translating it from a can you talk about it, but also can you write something. And I know that process can take a little bit of, well, time, quite honestly. And I think that's one of the things I'd like to kind of have you reflect on. It's like, if you have gone through review now in week 7, I actually have you do a review of the code review process. So I don't want to really do it here, but one of the things this code review is a checkpoint for you to say, what I'm doing in this class working? Like, is it working well for me? Is this process working well for me? Or is this something I need to change? And one of the changes I'm going to suggest to many of you is to come see me more often and not just during the weeks we're doing code reviews, because having the ability, and by the way, you can do this with your classmates as well, right? This is part of why having Discord, and I think some of you were actually on your own Zoom last night. I don't know. I kind of heard rumblings as I was heading off into sleepland last night. So just to be clear, I sent an email about if you didn't get in for code reviews, because at this point now their code is due. Now you just got to get in for the review. So make sure you do that. I want to clarify a couple things. One about Zoom. Starting yesterday, between a student from one student who got into Zoom and the next student couldn't because they had a passcode requirement, my URL actually has the one that's in Canvas, the one that's in Canvas under syllabus, which I'm not going to show on camera, actually has the passcode that's required in the URL. But starting yesterday, and I kind of knew this was coming, that Zoom was going to make this security change, you can no longer pass that through the URL. And that's the idea, that it's trying to parse, and it will no longer parse that. And it no longer really wants us to do that. So I will probably fix it to take it off. But here's what I want you to know. To get into Zoom from here on out, you actually have to take that series of codes after the PWD pass equals. That actually is the passcode from now on. So you'll probably have to ask me if you don't remember, because you'll get in and it'll like, where's that passcode? But maybe you'll remember, oh, Rio said, yeah, you can go back and get it. Second thing I want to chat about is that, so, and I know this can be confusing, but when you're, so my intention, and I said this in the write up, and I believe I said this in the video for Dev Zero, is that the idea was that it goes into the private repos. And some of you were trying to, just because you've got the fact that I want you to use Git Hack, but Git Hack doesn't work in the private repos. It only works in the public repos. And you might wonder why. Well, that's because they're private. And what happens is they're actually only accessible by the owner of the organization and the person who created the repo. So when Git hack, and that's what Git hack is doing, it's like taking that URL, somewhat redirecting it to output to a web page. Redirect's not the best word, but it's a concept. It can't do that. It can't see what's in those private repos. So what you need to be doing, and I actually last week, I think I did do a short video because somebody asked me about how I run live server, right? And now live server is not required. There also is apps, extensions in VS Code, and there's also just open up the file. Just go to your file manager, explore Finder for Mac, and just open up the index.html. It's totally fine, right? But some of you still had a little bit of struggle getting that display on page. And part of that is that some of you just included the function, but then didn't use it. And by the way, this is the other thing to walk away with knowledge, is once you have your code rely on display on page, you can no longer run your code through Node. It'll throw an error. So this is the week. Like, this is actually the week we transition in the Udemy course. So we're actually going to move to the browser. I'm excited about that. And again, I've introduced it a little early just to understand the link between the index file, the JavaScript file, at least knowing the ID had to be there, and then understanding how to pass your content into display on page. So you're starting a little ahead of the game. Let's hope. And if not, you'll hopefully, and actually, if not, maybe now, and that would be my goal, is as we move through this section and next, we're breaking it into two because it's fairly large, is you can go back to that display on page and more understand what it is doing. And actually, next week, learn together. That's what you're going to be doing. Is that kind of, and also creating a button, which is fun as well. So anyway, awesome. I'm excited to see the rest of you in the coming week. And like I said, just seen some great code. I was thinking about too, if you want to, on the week 7, because on week 7, and thank you, Rob, for reminding me, I had you take the code that you last did on the last Learn Together, because we didn't have one for last night, and I had you then put a button on it to make it run. And those of you who are interested could also use your dev 0 to show it off if you feel so inclined. And if you don't, that's totally cool too. I definitely saw some really good examples of code. And, sometimes you look at other people's code that, obviously have some existing knowledge from somewhere. And there are definitely students in this class that are both have existing knowledge and students who don't. And it is a very common thing for students who have not an existing knowledge base to look at somebody else's code and just be overwhelmed. That is why you use the dev tools to walk through them. I can just tell you that starting in the next dev, that's going to be part of your code review, is you actually have to use that tool to walk me through your code. So the sooner you get used to it, the better. All right. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you soon. I'll try to I have 7. I'll try to release 8 as well. And that's it from me. Answer whatever part of that I asked, a couple of different questions in there. Any part of that you feel interested in. By the way, I am teaching Python next semester for any of you that are interested in taking it. Would love to see you there.